are really a synopsis, a summary of 1,100 analysts and all the best practices, all the guidance, many of the conversations we have with IT organizations, IT executives and their staff. And so, we're going to jump right into this. You know, one of the things we see at IBC through our research around the globe is this emerging competitive differentiator of speed. And we all work at companies that buy a lot of technology, we use a lot of technology, but there's very few of our organizations that have built their entire business architecture on their technology architecture. Now take a moment and ask yourself, why are you doing this? You know, why are you in technology? Why is your company spending so much money on technology and staffing and processes? And we're seeing more and more that the answer is really simple. It's about speed. And when you consider companies that are really driving a sustainable competitive advantage, it's oftentimes around speed. So think about companies that are driving the network evolution, a new movie streaming company like Netflix. Talk about companies like Google or Facebook. Tremendous amounts of scale that their technology architectures are asked to provide. And yet, when you think about really what's at the core of their sustainable advantage, it's the speed that they can respond to new ideas. It's the speed that they can adjust to improve the customer experience. It's the speed that they can deploy new services around the globe, increasing time to market. So we're seeing speed as really, for the next decade, one of the most, if not the most important, critical opportunity for you to provide for your organization and for your business. The other area we're seeing that's really having significant impact on business outcomes from IT is your organizational structure. So many of you, back in the 60s, there was a software engineer named Mel Conway. And he came out with something that's now known as Conway's Law. And it really simply states that an organization that produces products or services is limited by their organizational structure. So if you ask a couple software development teams to create certain applications in silos, that's exactly what they're going to do. And their level of innovation is going to be limited because of their organizational structure. So you have a tremendous opportunity here to not only share with your peers what you've learned, pitfalls to avoid, but then to also get a sense of what are some of the best practices that maybe you've missed. And at IBC, we do this every day with IT organizations. So as we look at the first strategic planning assumption, we're really looking at this from a cloud perspective. And we're seeing that that third platform, as IBC defines it, which is simply cloud, mobile, big data, and social. These trends are having significant impact on your cloud strategies. Now here in Turkey, cloud means lots of different things. We talk about a private cloud, about public cloud services, and a hybrid cloud. And so we're seeing a tremendous opportunity here as you're planning out your cloud strategy to really think about what's the best cloud decision, cloud architecture for what you're trying to achieve from a business standpoint. Now, if you haven't started down this path of putting together a cloud strategy, one of the things we always advise clients around is before you sign a contract with any cloud provider, put a cloud exit strategy together. So think about that. Any type of contract that you have with a vendor supplier today, that's a form of lock-in. And it's the same, and it's even more important when you're selecting a cloud provider. Because when you select a cloud provider, you're really trusting this third party with your data. You're trusting them with a certain level of connectivity. You trust that they're going to deliver a certain set of performance parameters for the services you're paying for. So before you sign a cloud contract, really think about what would it take for you to get out of that contract. If you had to walk away from that cloud provider and that relationship, Who would be responsible for your data? Who's responsible for de-integrating your processes? Who would be responsible for making sure that that data is erased from that cloud infrastructure? So anytime we're working with clients, we're talking about this cloud topic, we always really talk to them first about, think what it would take to actually exit the relationship before you sign the contract, because that's when you have the most leverage. Now we're also seeing this whole idea around cost transparency. So many of you might have chargeback models. You might be using spreadsheets to really get an understanding of how much does it cost for you to deliver a certain set of services. So this whole notion of cloud, of cost transparency, is really driving a different type of conversation between you and those business managers. So rather than focusing on cost savings, which you often deliver, but rarely ever get back in return to invest into new technologies, you have an opportunity to change the conversation with that business manager to really say, hey, here's what we're delivering, here's the cost of what we're doing. Mr. or Mrs. Business Manager, would you like to give us more money for the additional things you're asking for? Or what would you like us to refocus on? What would you like us to stop doing? So it really changes the game if you can provide a really good set of cost models and have a good understanding of just how much it costs to deliver the IT capabilities you're currently executing. And this is particularly important because many cloud providers continue to drop their price. So anytime you see this, you really have to have a really good understanding of how much you think you can deliver a service versus a third-party cloud provider. Security. Another strategic planning assumption is we feel that this is going to be not just a key concern for you moving forward, but a key concern for your CEO. So let me tell you just a simple story. There's a big retailer in the United States named Target. And about a year ago, they had a little bit of a problem. This is a very well-respected IT organization, very advanced IT organization with great leadership. But they got hacked. It took them about 3 days to figure out what was going on. It took them another 4 days to actually identify exactly what was going on. Now, throughout this process, they lost 40 million identities of their customers. Now, my wife was happy to be one of them. She shops at Target. Now, the other thing they lost was about 100 million emails and home addresses of those customers. And I'm pretty sure my phone number was on there. We've got some calls that are a little sketchy. And so, the point is, they had all this big trouble, and it cost their business $232 million. That's just the cost to fix what's going on. 90 million of that was covered by their insurance policies, and another 10 million was set aside for customers that were financially impacted by the loss of their credit card number. So this is a CEO issue equally as much as it's a CIO in our issue. So really have a think and ask yourself, do you need a chief information security officer? Do you have the right level of investment around security? And really recognize that you can always do something better, and there's always better options out there. In this region, besides security, mobility is also another key strategic investment. And anytime you're putting together a mobility strategy, security needs to be a top line item and focus for that as well. Now, application provisioning, or DevOps. Now, I know there's about at least 50 people here who attended this session yesterday, 2 sessions around DevOps. Let's show of hands how many people have heard of this topic. Great. So this is something as a senior leader within your IT organization, I would urge you to go do more around learning about what DevOps is and how it helps you transform your organization. Now, DevOps is really a simple perspective. It takes your application development and your IT operations teams and says, look, these traditional separate silos, it's no longer working. It doesn't provide for the speed that you need to drive business outcomes. It's not enough collaboration. It's not enough teamwork. And so when you think about merging application workloads off the cloud, or you think about how your applications are now being developed in a cloud, or your mobile strategy around application development, these are all common themes that DevOps is helping to drive efficiency and speed, as well as quality of those applications. So think about the last time you deployed an application. Maybe it took you a year to actually finish the process. Maybe it took 2 years. DevOps offers an opportunity for you to say, you know what, we can do that significantly faster and with higher cost, with higher quality. So there's tremendous opportunity here to really think about speed and quality as business outcomes, and to really drive more collaboration amongst your teams through a DevOps methodology. Now, big data. Another planning assumption we see are significant investment around big data and analytics. And this isn't just about collecting data, is it? It's really about the customer experience. You want to learn who your customers are. You want to have a better sense of what they're going to do. So predictive analytics is a big theme here to consider as you're building out your big data strategy. The other thing that really matters here is around data governance and data compliance. Now, whether you're talking about cloud or big data, lots of data is going to be siphoned and collected from lots of different sources. Your internal sources, your marketing teams, your customer teams, your sales teams, all over the place. That's just the internal side of it. Now we're seeing companies collect data from their partners, collecting data from premium sources, incorporating data from governments, weather. More and more data is being collected, which really drives a lot more pressure on you to think about where's the data coming from, how you secure it, how you drive certain governance and framework around data collection and analytics. This also gives you a tremendous opportunity to drive a lot more of the business conversations, to really not only align with the business strategy, but to really drive that strategy through tremendous knowledge and through tremendous opportunities to drive better business decisions. Now, infrastructure transformation. I'm sure many of you have a lot of infrastructure projects going on, and you have a great opportunity with your vendor relationships. Now, I happen to work at CA Technologies, and in the past, I ran business unit strategy for about a $400 million unit there. And I was out in front of customers just like you, around the globe, and I was so surprised by the questions that weren't asked. So when you think about your transformation projects, you're going to make a decision about your vendors. Who are you going to choose? Who have you chosen already? How is that going? What do you need to change? And I was always shocked by the questions that the customers never asked. For example, you have a great opportunity to influence many of their roadmaps in terms of where you want the products to go, who should they acquire, why, and what are the specific business outcomes you want delivered from that vendor relationship. So we're seeing as these infrastructure transformation projects take place and new tools are being acquired, new vendor relationships and partnerships are being formed with you, that you have a tremendous opportunity to not only influence product roadmaps, but to really understand where these vendors are headed. You know, ask them, what's the level of commitment that they have to a particular emerging area? Let's say it's converged fabric, or security, or maybe DevOps. Figure out who the product managers are for the products that you're buying. Make sure you have an understanding of the roadmaps for those particular products. And if a vendor has layoffs or budget reductions, have a really deep understanding of what does that mean to your relationship. What's that mean to your product roadmap? Are they going to be able to deliver what they're saying? And this is really, really important when you're talking about a cloud decision. Because many of these vendors are still emerging. They're coming into your region. Some vendors might have a local data center presence. Others might not. These are all very, very critical, important questions you need to ask these vendors to drive your business success. Now, the last slide here. How many people have seen or heard of this book called Leading Change? All right. I strongly suggest you all go buy the book. And the reason is, John Cotter is a Harvard Business School professor, and he wrote this book a number of years ago called Change. And in it, he doesn't talk about any technology. He talks about all the things that drive transformation and change in an organization. So when you're going through you've got a certain IT culture, you've got a certain level of change that you're driving within your organization. We're seeing more and more CIOs and teams run into bureaucratic challenges, political challenges, cultural challenges. And this book really lays out a nice framework and a roadmap for understanding how do you drive change, how do you start from a bottoms-up approach in transforming your organization. Some of the things he says in terms of why transformations fail. First and foremost, there's no sense of urgency in the executive team. Where these teams are not very strong and not focused. Many times these organizations, especially within IT, you can have a great baseline for a transformational project, but you don't really set the vision for where things are headed. A lot of times we don't communicate well enough a particular vision for transformation. Some other things he mentions in the book are really thinking about short-term wins. We've talked a lot about security, like mobility, DevOps, infrastructure. Anytime we've seen successful IT organizations make a change, they get short-term wins. It's not about these 12, 24-month cycles anymore. We're also seeing a lot of organizations think about the corporate culture. Not just the business side, but how does technology really transform their culture? How does it drive business outcomes? The other thing he talks about is really about success factors. He talks about the competitive drive. When you're driving change or you're looking at these projects, you've got to have, as a leader, a lot of competitive drive. You're going to hit walls, you're going to overcome them. The other thing he talks about is the notion of lifelong learning, to really drive listen first mentality. So I'd urge you to take a look at the book. It really helps you set a baseline for driving change in your IT organization. It also really helps set some of the common challenges of transformation that many of these projects that you're doing and planning on executing you're going to face. And finally, at the top here, we do a lot of advisory work with CIOs just like you, their teams, lots of different business leaders, many organizations around the globe. And to me, these were three quotes that really stood out over the course of the past couple of years. One which is this whole idea of facts can influence people, but vision can change hearts and minds. So think about the last time you had a conversation, a difficult conversation with one of your peers or a team, maybe you're the CEO or your business management, and there are lots of opinions. Right? Opinions are a dime a dozen. So that you see, we like to ground things in fact and numbers. So the next time you walk into one of those meetings, think about the facts that you can collect before the meeting. Because it's really hard to debate a fact or a set of facts, a set of numbers. It's easy to debate opinions. Another CIO once said, you're in a constant state of listening. So it's a wonderful sort of principle to consider as you're going through your transformational projects, to listen first. Understand where people are coming from. Be empathetic to what they're trying to achieve and how you can help them. And finally, overkill the leadership bench. So this is another thing when you think about career development within IT. You think about talent management. A tremendous opportunity to really develop through these projects lots of your talent and to develop wonderful career paths for your organization. So with that, really hope you enjoy the next 2.5 days of the conference, next 2 days. Appreciate your time, and I look forward to meeting with you in the future. Thank you.